recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Bishop, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Liu was pretty far afield on a couple of things, but Professor Fredrickson, could I just ask this? Do you endorse the rhetoric just used that justices lied when they testified to the Senate committee that Roe, that they were effectively open-minded about Roe, that Roe was established law, but stare decisis follows the principles that exist in law?
Respectfully, Mr. Congressman, I'm here to talk about this bill, and I think we should stick to this conversation about the ethics.
Yeah, but you don't get to decide what the questions are here. I get to decide. So you can tell me you refuse to answer the question I ask, and that would be revealing enough. Do you endorse the notion that those justices lied, as Mr. Liu just accused them?
I have no idea whether they lied or whether they simply changed their minds, because as Reverend Schenck said earlier, we don't know what's going on inside their minds.
Isn't it correct?
They certainly did.
Isn't it correct?
Change positions quite radically.
Isn't it correct that a judge reserves judgment on an issue to come before them until that case is presented? Isn't that the proper discourse, a proper approach for a judge?
Indeed. However, when they're asked about whether there is existing precedent, they're also generally would confirm that there is existing precedent, and if they say they're going to abide by it, one would assume they would abide by it.
Do you think it's ethical to smear a justice by confusing the public about that, by suggesting that justices in being examined by a Senate committee are lying when they're in fact reserving judgment as to an issue that's not yet presented?
Good question.
I think, unfortunately, the biggest ethics smear for Supreme Court justices right now is all of the information that's been coming out about the trips.
Right, but you're now answering something else. I asked you if what I proposed to you is ethical. Is it ethical to smear a justice by doing that?
You asked me whether the public would consider those to be ethics problem if we were
No, that's not what I asked you.
The perception of the public.
I'll reclaim my time. If you're not going to answer my question, let me move to Mr. Schenck. Mr. Schenck, in a blog post you wrote recently, it's up here on the, I'm sure you've seen it today. It says, in my 64 plus years, I've not only believed a fair number of consequential lies, I've promulgated them. And although the chairman said it was unseemly in some way, before the chairman said that, Mr. Jordan rather devastatingly cross-examined you about a claim you made in your book. So you've proclaimed that you are a liar, or you have been a liar. Do you think it's ethical for this committee, for the majority of this committee, to bring an inveterate? Who's whispering in your ear? Mr. Schenck, who is it who's whispering in your ear as you're testifying?
My counsel.
That's your lawyer? So he's advising you in your ear while you're getting this question. Okay, just wanted to... No, absolutely, just want to know who's whispering in your ear as you're...
Sure.
Do you think it's ethical for the majority of this committee to bring someone who is professed to have been a liar, has been demonstrated to be a liar, to cast aspersions on a Supreme Court justice for the purpose of bringing the court into disrepute?
Congressman, some members of this committee with whom I've spent time in prayer, Bible study, many visits. There are members of this committee who have visited my headquarters building on numerous occasions to participate in events there, know that all during the years that I was an advocate for certain causes, I was a passionate believer in them. At this stage of my life and in this, at this part of my journey, I look back and realize that many of the things I promulgated were not true.
So you did you know at the time they weren't true?
I did not know at the time.
Okay, so you did not know the difference between the truth and a lie.
And one of them...
Let me ask you this question. The thing that you say that you did, you encouraged wealthy donors to insinuate themselves with Supreme Court justices in hopes of influencing them. Was that unethical?
I'm not an expert on judicial ethics. I don't know anything actually
I didn't set any preconditions. Was it unethical?
Ethics,
can you say that that was an unethical thing to do?
It violated Christian ethics.
Okay. So all right. And you're the person that they decided to bring in here as a witness. That says a lot. You know, I think to Mr. Gates's point earlier, I don't know exactly how the Supreme Court ought to have a code of ethics or whether it'll change something important. I do think a lot of people want to use it tactically to prevent them from doing their jobs, but nothing's new here over the hearings we've had before except Mr. Schenck's testimony. And the witness they decided to bring in speaks for itself. I yield back.